calculations.
Morning, everyone.
Morning,
Learning Mishna is Bava Kamma, Parak Zion, Chapter 7, Mishna Gimel, Mishna 3. Okay, so we need a introduction. We have to be introduced to Eidim Zaymimin, witnesses that are known as Zaymimin witnesses. So the introduction goes like this. There are two main ways in which the testimony of one group of witnesses can be contradicted by the testimony of a second group. Number A, one group of witnesses testifies that they saw an event in a certain time and place. Then a second group of witnesses testifies that they were in that place at that time and saw that the event did not occur. In this case, testimonies of both groups are treated equally. So one says, Ruvain, Reuven killed someone in this place at this time, and two witnesses come and say, never happened. They're contradicting each other. And basically, they kind of just cancel each other out in the sense that, they're both, we don't know who's saying the truth, so we have nothing to work with. The second group of witnesses testify that the first witnesses were in a different place at that time and therefore could not have seen the event. Thus, the second witnesses do not claim to know anything about the event. They're testifying only about the first witnesses themselves. Get that? We're not talking about what happened. All of the second witnesses come and say, you guys could not have testified because you were with us at that time and in a different place. Torah decrees that in this situation we are to believe only the second witnesses and assume that the first witnesses were lying. These lying witnesses are called zomimin, which they translate as plotters, because they plotted against the person whom they falsely accused. So this is the Torah's decree. In this case, when the second witnesses just testify about the witnesses, that they could not have testified about such a thing, and it's because they say you were with us at that time. Therefore, the Torah says, the Torah's decree, the second witnesses are believed, and the second witnesses are considered false witnesses. The Torah also decrees that Zomimin receive the same punishment that the person they accused would have received. Since they tried to have him punished in that manner, the same punishment is imposed on them. Another decree of the Torah is that what they try to do to that person through their testimony comes back on them. Guilty. They tried going ahead and having this person, let's say they testify, so-and-so ate non-kosher food. Okay? When you eat non-kosher food, what do you get for that? In the times of when corporal punishment was still administered, you get malchus, you get lashes for doing that. So if it comes out that those witnesses who testified about this person were established as Eidim Zaymimin, they will receive the lashes. Whatever they tried giving to that person, typically is going to come back on them. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Eidim Zaymimin regarding what we've been discussing until now, which is stealing and then slaughtering or selling it, which obligates you to pay, but obligates the thief to pay 4 or 5 times more than the ox or sheep that he stole. So the Mishna says like this: Ganav al pi shnayim. A person stole, again, an ox or a sheep, because our discussion is going to go into the payments of 4 or 5, which only apply there. And there are 2 witnesses who testified that he stole. V'tavachu machar al piyam. And the same witnesses say that not only did he steal it, he also shechted it or sold it. So they're trying to obligate him to pay 4 or 5. V'nimtzeu zaymimin. And those witnesses were found to be zaymimin. What are they going to have to pay now? Mishaman Akol. They have to pay everything. They testified about him that he has to pay 4 or 5 for stealing and for shechting or selling. They're the same witnesses about both. They were found zomimin about both. They're zomimin. They couldn't have testified any of it because they were with the witnesses say you could not have testified about any of this because you were with us. So they have to pay everything. They have to pay what the God paid for stealing, which is kefal, and then for shechting or for selling the extra 2 or 3. Now, next case, Ganav al pi shnayim. Let's see, went that he stole based on the testimony of 2 witnesses. 2 witnesses come and say he stole. And And regarding his slaughtering or selling, those were two other witnesses that testified about that. So basically, when you have such a case, you have two witnesses say he stole. Next witnesses say, we saw him shechten and sell it. They didn't see him steal it necessarily, but they saw him shecht or sell this animal, which was stolen, based on the other witnesses. In a case where both sets of witnesses were found to be zomimin. They were both found to be zomimin. Whether it's two witnesses came and said you could not have testified about the stealing. Two witnesses say to the other witnesses you couldn't have testified about the slaughtering or the selling, and therefore the first witnesses are going to pay double, meaning the first set that said that he stole but were then found to be zomimin, they're going to pay the double that they wanted him to pay, or that they testified against him to pay. And the other ones, the second witnesses who were found zomimin regarding the selling or the stealing, they're going to have to go ahead and pay the additional 3 that they were trying to make. 3 in case it was an ox, and 2 if it would have been a lamb. That additional 2 or 3, those second witnesses who found zomimin are going to have to pay, because that's what they were trying to get him to do. Okay, so again, in this last case we have where 2 witnesses testified, established that he stole. Another 2 witnesses establishes that he sold it or that he shechted it. And both witnesses were found to be zomimin. So the first witnesses who wanted him to pay kefil, they testified that he stole. That means they were trying to get him to pay kefil, double. They're going to have to pay double to him. They have to give the money back. They give the money back to him. And the second witnesses who were found to be Eidim Zomimin, who were trying to get him to have to pay an additional 2 or 3, they will now have to pay that additional 2 or 3. Now, it's an important thing to know here. The notes brings this down from the Bartanura. The Mishnah's ruling applies only where the second pair of witnesses was found to be Zomimin before the first pair. You got that? The second, we're saying both of them were made Zomimin, but the order of their being established as Zomimin was that the witnesses about the shecht, about the slaughtering or the selling, were found zomimin before the first ones. In the reverse case, where the first pair was found to be zomimin before the second pair would not have to pay anything. Why? Once the court discovers that the first witnesses were zomimin and rejects their testimony, it has no evidence that the accused person stole the animal at all. He might have bought it from the previous owner. At that point, the testimony of the second pair that he slaughtered or sold the animal becomes irrelevant because it no longer obligates him to pay anything. Therefore, even if the second witnesses are later found to be zomimin, they do not receive the punishment of zomimin. If you first establish that the witnesses about the stealing are false, and we accept that, and we know that they're false, that means we have no testimony anymore that he stole. If we don't know that he stole, so even if we know that he went ahead and he slaughtered or he sold it, so what? You're not going to obligate him to pay anything there because we have no idea if he stole it. So that means that if the first witnesses, they were first established as zomimin, that means we already first established that let's this way, we established that there's no witnesses that he stole it. Then automatically the testimony of the second witnesses, even if they weren't made zomimin, is irrelevant. And therefore, if afterwards 2 witnesses come and say about the second witnesses that they were zomimin, doesn't make a difference. Their testimony became irrelevant before they became zomimin. If the case of the Mishnah is where the first witnesses to become a zomimin were the witnesses about the slaughtering or the stealing, at that point of time, they would have obligated him to have to pay the extra 2 or 3. And if they become a zomimin at that point of time, at that stage rather, then they have to pay. Now, it happens to be, if the first witnesses now, because the second witnesses were made zomimin, the first witnesses are still relevant because they say that he stole. And if they say that he stole, he still has to pay kefil, has to pay double. Happens to be, the story is that now they also later were established as zomimin also. And therefore, what the double they wanted him to have, they were making him pay, they were testifying about him paying, now they pay him. But the case of the Mishnah where both of them are zomimin and both of them are paying has to be where the second witnesses, meaning the witnesses about the stealing or the selling, they became zomimin first, before the first ones. If the first ones became Zomamin, and we have no more testimony about stealing, then the testimony about the slaughtering or the selling is irrelevant, and therefore, if they're irrelevant, becoming Zomamin afterwards doesn't do anything to them. Have a wonderful day. We will continue tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi.